You might hear some alert sounds coming from my computer because I am letting it still play the live feed from Ferguson, Missouri via Vice Live, and I'm also listening for notifications from my Twitter in case something goes down. It is after 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm filming this on August 17th for my August 17th vlog. I stayed up this late on purpose. I wanted to stay up this late so that I could see what happened in Ferguson via the internet once the curfew that was imposed by Governor Jay Nixon went into effect from midnight to 5 a.m. It is Sunday, Paul Talkers. You know, I've been vlogging every day August, and recently, this week, I've pretty much been vlogging every day about Furguson, Missouri. I'd like to stop, but the horrors there keep going on. I had wanted to talk about how trying to institute a curfew in a place that is not already kind of a war zone is a bad idea because you're going to make it into a war zone. But I stayed up and I watched stuff go down in Ferguson, so I'm going to talk about some specifics. Thank goodness for YouTube's live broadcasting capabilities. Thank you, YouTube. I watched a live feed from a reporter from Vice Live. Almost for the first hour of the time after the curfew, very little happened. There were protesters, and they were just standing around. They were chanting, but you know what? Chanting is not that big of a deal. It's fine. They were defying the curfew. But the curfew was bullshit. And at some point, I want to say around 1 o'clock in the morning Missouri time, the police began advancing on the protesters, and the police action is when shit escalated. To remind you, throughout this entire conflict in Ferguson, police action has caused every single problem. Police shot an unarmed teen. He was an unarmed teen walking down the street. Police shot him a lot till he died. Police refused to say anything about the shooter. Police refused to take any sort of culpability for it. After many days, they released the name of the killer and have done nothing to charge him or arrest him, despite the fact that he had no reason to kill a teenage boy in the street of Ferguson, Missouri. In an attempt to smear the victim, the Ferguson police chief talked about a completely unrelated robbery that took place before the shooting, admitted that the robbery had nothing to do with the shooting because the officer didn't know about it, and yet released photo stills from a video about the unrelated robbery. That is an obvious smear tactic. So broadcast news sources, please stop saying that he was a black man, because he was an unarmed teen. That's what you should be saying. Please stop calling him a strong-armed robbery suspect, because whether or not he was involved in that robbery, it had nothing to do with the killing. He is a murder victim. Some robberies happened at night, during the tense times. News sources want to call it looting, so did the police. But what it really was striking back at the insane insults that had been placed on the black community by the mostly white police force. Stealing some stuff to say, hey, fuck you? Seems like a minor response, frankly. And when those robberies happened, Ferguson protesters tried to get them to stop. Because the Ferguson protesters, a vast majority of them wanted to keep things peaceful, wanted to get things done and accomplish their goals of getting the murderer charged and arrested. And then Saturday, during a press conference, instead of admitting the racism that's being evidenced throughout the police actions, instead of admitting that the murderer of Michael Brown was a murderer of Michael Brown and needs to be charged and arrested, instead of firing the police officer, instead of doing any of these reasonable things, the governor instituted a curfew. All that the curfew did was take an action that the people are allowed to do. They are allowed to be out and about in the neighborhoods that their taxes pay to maintain, late at night if they want to be, and then made them all of a sudden something that the police could officially respond to. That makes me question many things about this governor. There had been promises made that during this night of the curfew, that the press would be allowed to be the press, and that there would be no tear gas used. But when the curfew came around, the press were corralled inside of a media pen and not allowed to leave on threat of arrest. And then tear gas was used to move the protesters. Plus the LRAD, the sonic cannon, was used to move the protesters as well. What the Ferguson Police Department is doing over and over again is proving that they are not a protective part of this community. They are a harmful part of that community. The looting wasn't looting. It was just a response to the oppression and the indignity and the insults of how the police were treating the black people in the community. The protests were just protests. Every escalation, every bit of violence, everything bad that has gone down since the start of this has been on the police of Ferguson and now the governor of Missouri. Freedom of press is important. I am so glad for technology right now, because without YouTube and Twitter and iPads and iPhones and Wi-Fi and LTE, we would not be getting this shit. We would not know any of this. The police of Ferguson, Missouri keep lying. Mainstream news channels are buying it and disseminating it until all of us on social media rise up in uproar, rise up and say, those are lies. And even then, it's too late. It's gotten to too many ears. So I make this vlog because I'm trying really hard to give you a more truthful assessment of what's going on than what you're seeing on CNN and MSNBC. And I am so amazed by the strength and courage of all the journalists who are trying so hard to report from Ferguson, Missouri right now, because they're not in the United States of America right now. I don't know where the hell they are, but they don't have the rights that they should have. And that is terrifying. There were some complaints on Twitter that the reporters were listening to the police and not pursuing the story. I know that the reporters are supposed to pursue that story because they're protected by the First Amendment, but I don't know that the police know that. So I don't blame the reporters for staying alive. And I realize that other countries have it like this all the time, everywhere. I get that. I understand. And I will go back to being upset and irate about those other countries in a minute, but right now, this is my home. I am furious. You should be furious. I'm going to include a link in the doobly-doo about, 10 things that white people can do besides tweeting about Ferguson, Missouri. It's a good list. Check it out. If you support the stuff that I said in this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Please share this video if you think that other people need to know about this stuff. And check me on it. You're welcome to search the internet, find record of all the stuff that I said, find out how valid it is, because it's all legit. Leave me your comments, questions, and suggestions below. If nothing else, tell me something that matters to you, because I want to know what matters to you. Does this matter to you? And as always, thanks for watching.